My girlfriend claims to be pregnant, but I'm infertile. Background: after graduating from college, I was involved in an accident and would never be able to have children. This is something that none of my family members are aware of. They are aware of the accident, but are unaware of this. I'd always wanted to remain childless, so it didn't have a significant psychological impact on me. I earned my master's degree last year and had never been in a relationship before. Through campus placements, I was able to get a very well-paying position. My parents wanted me to get married as soon as I started working, but I wanted to take some time to concentrate on myself and explore a little more. They refused, and I explained that it was my desire. All my life, I did what they asked of me, and when I spoke out against them for the first time, they were not pleased with me. This occurred last year, and they quit up shortly after COVID began operations. So I downloaded a few of dating apps and browsed through them, but to no avail. After that, my parents introduced me to the daughter of a family friend, and we sort of connected. Looking back, I was a complete moron. She agreed to whatever I asked of her and never expressed any dissatisfaction with anything. It made me feel a little strange. Her hobbies were something I wanted her to convey, but she always stated she was interested in anything I was doing. I didn't give it much thought at the time. I told her that I would never have children, and she agreed, which surprised me. After all, it's difficult to find a spouse who is child-free in my nation, or so I thought, but we were still in the early stages of our relationship, and she had not been informed about my injury until after the fact. To cut a long tale short, we had about a month ago, and I used condoms first and foremost for my own protection. The next day, she began to ghost me a little bit. I assumed it was because of my performance in bed, and I wanted to give her some breathing room. After that, she texted seldom and simply responded with OK and KS or one-line responses. I speculated that she was upset about the breakup and wanted to stop the relationship, but I left it at that. Her whole family came to my home yesterday, and she says that she is pregnant and that I am the father of the child. Needless to say, I was really terrified out and wanted to fall on the ground. I didn't say anything when they were discussing marriage and other things that needed to happen, since I was the one who got her pregnant. Could you please tell me on the next measures to take Reddit? The most recent update is to express my gratitude for all of the Redditors who took the time to read and provide feedback on my article. I was very taken aback by the quantity of comments and the number of people who said it may not even be my child. Viewing the subject from a whole new viewpoint provided me with much greater understanding into the entire scenario. I made a phone call to my supervisor and requested the day off. I contacted about 2 other clinics to see if I could be tested, and was offered a time slot for Friday afternoon. After that, I went to the shop and purchased several pregnancy tests, and I invited just her to come over to my apartment the next day, i.e. today morning. I also contacted my parents, and before I could say anything, my mother inquired as to if I had received any good news. I was taken aback by what she said and inquired as to what she was referring to. When she continued to act stupid, I realized that the situation was much worse than I had anticipated. I hung up the phone and sobbed all night till 3 a.m., a grown-ass guy sobbing for the first time since 8th grade, for the first time in my life. She showed up with her parents this morning, despite my instructions that she come alone. They were under the notion that I was going to sit down with them and talk about engagement arrangements. They were enraged when I instructed them to wait outside and summoned her into the room. I told them that they could all go or that they could allow her in alone, and they agreed. I pulled out the pregnancy tests and handed them to her, instructing her to use them to show that she was pregnant and directing her to the restroom if necessary. She screamed at me. This was the first time she had done so, and I was astonished. Then she ran out the door and brought her parents in. Now, everyone in my house is yelling at me because I asked her to confirm the pregnancy with anything, not even a DNA test, and she refused. I ordered them all to, and an hour later, my mom and the whole of my family showed up at my house and spilled the beans on me. My parents were worried that I was growing too old for marriage and wanted me to marry so that they might have grandkids, despite the fact that she was never genuinely pregnant, as many Redditors claimed. They said that in arranged weddings, there is no need for individuals to get to know them, that to know the partner, since the parents choose just the finest for their children to get married to. They had everything planned out and were only waiting for me to have with her in order to carry it through. I broke down and sobbed once again. My whole life, I performed precisely what my parents requested of me, had consistently great grades, and never asked for anything. In between sobbing, I ordered them to get out of my house and never speak to me again, and they responded by saying that parents know what is best for their children and that I should follow their advice. Afterwards, I became quite enraged and ordered them to themselves in my original tongue, which was a pretty poor translation. For the first time, I believe they realized I was serious with them and they all departed. I blocked them all before sending a message to my parents, telling them that they should never contact me again in their lives, even if one of you is dying. I cried for a little more, watched some dog videos, and read over all of my Reddit posts, and I feel like I owe you guys an update, since it was you people who encouraged me to do this. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a good day. Further developments. Over the past several days, I felt like a weight has been taken off my shoulders, particularly from my parents, who have high expectations of me in many areas. The first day after the incident was a complete disaster. My parents compelled relatives to contact me and ask if I would want to see the cause for this. I rejected. They stopped after 2 days after a stern reply from me demanding that they not contact me again. I also scheduled an appointment for family planning a vasectomy, which will take place the following month. Some individuals have inquired as to whether I will ever inform my family about this, but I have decided not to. That is my body, and that is my business. I will, of course, inform any possible future dates that I am child-free and that I had a vasectomy before the meeting with them. Some individuals have inquired as to my origins. I am originally from India. Story 2. My wife has been caught cheating. Let me start with some background. My wife and I are both 54 M/F. Married 31 years, she is an RN at a hospital. I work for a home builder since I was 18. We have 2 children, both grown out of the house in their 20s. We decided in our mid-40s to pursue my wife's dream of running a bed and breakfast. We have been looking on and off for years. We came across a piece of property of 5 acres and a home built in the 1870s. The original owners were large landowners in this area. They had an extensive agricultural business empire. Over the decades, fewer of the family wanted to stay in farming. Parcels of land were sold off. Our town is going through growing spurts as it has become quite touristy because of some, let's say, natural formations and beauty. The farmland along the main highways is being gobbled up. The house and land we purchased is away from the highways. Since we bought it, my wife and I are redoing the entire house. There has been neglect in some basic maintenance, and we want to restore the house to its prominence 150 years ago, along with making a living. My wife has been in charge of decorating rooms as I finish along with paying the mortgage. I am renovating room by room, paying for all material and any professional help if needed. I am pretty handy, so most work is done by me. The last few years the housing industry has gone through the roof. We would work 8 days a week if we could. I was pulling in big money. Until last year. The pandemic knocked us out of work for a while in 2020, then the material shortages started. Of course, my wife was on the front lines for the last 18 months. Last year, she worked weeks at the hospital without days off. The medical staff stayed at the hospital. They had rooms several slept in together. To say the least, the staff got very close. They worked 4 weeks on, 2 weeks off, starting in March last year, into the fall, then again after Thanksgiving. My wife, as always, after the kids were older, worked for others if they asked. She watched these young parents crying because they could not see their families. So, on their off times, she would give up her time off and offer it to the staff that really needed it. There were others that did this too. The whole COVID experience changed her. Watching people put on ventilators, the deaths, etc. She was not the same person. She was distant. Our life went to zero. I attributed it to either her experiences or her age. I tried talking about it, but was told she just didn't feel it anymore. We still worked closely on the house. We planned trips to an area in our state that had a large Amish population. The Amish here are known for craftsmanship in woodworking and sewing. We bought several pieces of furniture for the bedrooms along with handmade quilts. This past weekend, we were planning on taking a 3-day trip to this area to buy dining room furniture. I also pay in trade with some wood that I get when I take down an old barn, which I do as a side gig. Barnwood is very much in demand. My boss calls me and tells me everyone is working the whole week as he was able to get wood and shingles for a house we have been sitting on, waiting for supplies. I told the wife we could go on Saturday and Sunday. On Friday morning, she tells me she is still going with some workers because there is a fall festival going on too. I go to a local bar that night. One of her coworkers comes up to say hello. I asked if she was going on the trip. She knew nothing about it, so I texted the wife asking if she made it okay and asked who was all there with her. She texted back that this friend, her other close friend, and a friend called Stevie. I had heard this name the last few months. Until then I always thought they was female. I asked her friend at the bar if she knew this Stevie. She said no, but there is a Steven that works with them. The wife gets back Sunday afternoon. She has bags of tablecloths, napkins, kitchen towels, etc. She is showing me what she bought. In one bag there was a smaller bag. She pulled it out, looked in it, and said, "Oh, not this bag. It's not for us." I let it go. Later I looked in the bag. She had hidden it in a closet. It was decorations for a man cave for a college team. I don't follow in sports, so it wasn't for me. I asked to talk with her. I asked again who all went. She gave the same 3 people. I just asked who Stevie was because we had not met. She told me a woman they work with. I pulled out the man cave stuff and told her I talked to her friend, who was supposed to be away last weekend, but her plans blew up. Then I asked who Stevie was again. She started crying and told me who he was, and yes, they were by themselves. They had been since last year during their hospital lockdown. So now she is living in one of the finished bedrooms, our bedroom. I will talk to a lawyer on Monday. I have no idea what to do about the house, the business, the marriage. To me she was sorry she was caught, but not for the affair. I asked her if she would break it off with Stevie. She was not sure.